Hi, and welcome to Own Your Divine Light show. I am Janet Miller, and I invite you to hear the inspiring discoveries and results of Dianne Porchia, whose company, Porchia's Wish, has brought a whole integrated health path to self-healing, loving, and living consciously. Dianne is featured in Heal, a documentary, along with Deepak Chopra and other experts in medicine, science, wellness, and spirituality. Hi, Dianne. Welcome to the show. It's an honor to have
Hello.
you.
Hello. Finally here.
Yeah, despite it all, we're here.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on the show, Janet.
Thank you, Dianne, again. I'm really, really honored to have you here. I'm always like to start from the beginning, Dianne. So what factors in your life led you into this path of whole integrated healing that you are on now?
So, like so many people, what started me on the path was going through divorce. So, I was married for 16 years and a stepmom to 3 kids, my husband's 3 children. And, going through divorce and actually trying to save the marriage and trying to find, higher meaning and purpose in my marriage and relationship is going through a very difficult time, and started, reading the books and connecting and trying to kind of take the higher path and save the marriage. And of course it didn't work. It was time to end it, I guess. And so I continued on my spiritual path and came to learn about a master's course in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica, and enrolled, not really knowing what that meant, but it resonated. I had already started off on my kind of healing journey by becoming a massage therapist and learning a lot of different therapeutic touch modalities. I have a background in dance and yoga and fine art. And when I found this master's course in spiritual psychology, it seemed to be that missing link for me, that next step in my professional career. So I, really was reinventing myself after divorce.
Sure. Wow. That was a great path, though. So, you've come into this amazing healing modality that you've created yourself that's really having amazing impacts on people. And
yeah.
I know that you have an uncle. I love your uncle's story and who affected your life. Your Uncle Bill, the cosmic surfer. What did he teach you?
I love my Uncle Bill. He's been gone for so many years now, but I feel that, he's with me always. And he was a psychiatrist and, kind of studied and then went into psychiatry and was really steeped in Freudian analysis. And, early on when I was little, he looked like the typical Freudian analyst. He had a crew cut and, beard that was closely cropped and was a pipe smoker and turtleneck and, all this stuff. And then he went through kind of awakening in I think he was in his 40s. He divorced his alcoholic wife. He started, I don't know, he had a transformation and grew his hair long. This is, I guess, in the 70s, something. Okay. Grew his hair long, then he had this long gray hair, full beard, started wearing tie-dyed outfits, hanging out with kind of the festivals and the love-ins of that time. And he became a shrink to a lot of rock and rollers, I think. That's who he was hanging out with. He was also a Renaissance man and an artist. Mm-hmm. So he would carry around a camera or a writing pad, and he'd be like backstage with big names like Jimi Hendrix, and Jefferson Starship. And so, when I was a little kid, he would take me to some of these things. And so he he was a big influence in my life. I remember that I would go to him for, counseling and mentoring, as well as my friends in high school. They all loved going to him, and everyone knew about my Uncle Bill, and he was just very open and loving and welcomed the opportunity to mentor and guide my peers, which was awesome.
Yes. Oh, he was the ultimate hippie in so many ways, wasn't he? But just
Yes, he
generous,
was.
just such a generous man, which really is, such a good gift in your life. I love that.
Yeah.
Story. So I know you've helped so many people survive and thrive. And you say it starts in childhood. And you say childhood, the children develop strategies that help them feel safe environment. And then as they get into, and this goes into their subconscious, and as this carries into their adulthood, you find that it's not working for the adults anymore. So how does that affect us in our adult life? And what are the outcomes of that?
Yeah, so, everyone has this inner saboteur voice. And that voice is a voice that has all these limitations attached to it. Like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, nothing I do is ever good enough or will ever be good enough. And that is, there's based, I guess, in survival strategies that were developed in early childhood.
Yeah.
And, when we come into this world as, new souls arriving, we have all this spiritual knowledge and wisdom. Little kids, the wisdom that comes out of little kids can be astonishing sometimes. And, they just came from source, so they're connected. And as a child matures and as they experience their environment, they start learning that, maybe it's not as rosy as this, the pure space that they had come from. And so they have to figure out how to survive in their new environment. And so through the maturation process, they accumulate different strategies, survival strategies, to cope and deal with the environment that they're born into. And a lot of times they, create some limiting beliefs that carry with them into adult life. And, at some point in someone's maturation and personal growth process, they might wake up and realize that these protection mechanisms that were kind of imprinted in early childhood are now creating blocks and barriers to the love that they want to achieve, the success they want to achieve, the health that they want in their lives. And, unfortunately, many times that, that wake-up call to step into that personal growth and change things for themselves is because an illness has come into their body, or maybe some other major upset. Mine was divorce. I thought I was going to grow old with my husband. And, when that kind of fell apart and that prompted me to go on, the spiritual path and look for deeper meaning and purpose in my life. And through that journey, I learned a lot of stuff, and I came up with my own program, Porchia's Wish, which is an acronym for the Whole Integrated Self-Health, and that's it's an approach to healing, loving, and living consciously. And so the holistic approach, and I call my work holistic stress reduction. People can identify with stress in their lives, and I don't want to be labeled as a spiritual woo-woo person, because I'm not. I'm very grounded in practical tools and techniques. So holistic stress reduction is something that the general populace can relate to. And then once we get into that work, the spiritual enters, and it's an important and an essential part of the healing process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that myself in my own life. It's amazing what, I think it seems like 39 or 40, we all seem to get into this. This is like the big shift. That was my shift. I know that. I don't know about everybody else, but that's where mine started. But so how do we change this programming that we got and all these things that are going on? How do we start changing it with what?
Yeah. So, what I do with my clients is, I guide them through closed-eye processes that allow us to access deeper levels of the heart and the soul and the subconscious. So there's no amount of positive affirmations that are going to override a really loud inner saboteur voice that doesn't believe it, right?
Yes.
So, that's why affirmations alone just aren't going to work. You have to gain the inner cooperation from much deeper levels of the heart, soul, and subconscious. So what I am very skilled in is guiding people through closed-eye processes that's similar to a hypnosis, but different, into those deeper realms. And once we've accessed those deeper realms of the heart and the soul and the subconscious, then dialoguing. And I use a technique called somatic dialogue. And we identify what parts of the body are holding on to tension. So the body has innate intelligence, and it always tells you when you're getting out of balance, right? And so, we dialogue with those parts of the body that are feeling and holding on to that discomfort, that dis-ease, and do that from a very deep level. And more information comes up. And I never know what that information is going to be and what body part we're going to be working with. But invariably, it takes us back to some early childhood experiences. And, and then when that information comes up, it gives us an opportunity to do some inner child healing work, which, is transformational. And then, another part of the healing section of or piece of work is also, exploring that inner saboteur voice. How did it originate? What happened? Sometimes it's real, trauma, physical, sexual, mental, emotional abuse, Sometimes it's in scary environment that they grew up in. Sometimes it's simply a misperception from the viewpoint of a little 3-year-old or a 5-year-old that doesn't understand everything that's going on in the adult world and comes up with their own ideas of what's going on and what they need to do to make themselves feel safe and secure in that environment. So anyway, when that information comes up, it's really, really getting to the core of these limiting beliefs and the core of, how that inner saboteur voice really came to be. And that's why it's so effective, because we're getting to the core. We're not working on the surface levels. And my work is deep. It doesn't work on the surface. So, and then, there's also some sacred anger work. If that has to come out, that will come out. You'll see, if your listeners watch Heal documentary, they'll see my work with Elizabeth, who is diagnosed with stage 4 anal cancer and remains cancer-free now over 5 years after her diagnosis. Wow. And one of the scenes in it that seems to resonate with a lot of people shows Elizabeth doing her sacred anger work on the hillside. And sacred anger work is really moving that stuck energy that that's been repressed and held onto by the body. And it's done through physical exertion and intention. So you see her on the hillside throwing rocks.
Whatever it takes, right? I mean, it's almost,
yeah, it's very powerful.
do you let them choose what they need to do, or do they just figure it out themselves? How does that work for them?
No, I guide them through it all. So I can, see what needs to come out. I know when it's the right time to introduce it. Everything unfolds very organically when I work with my clients, whether it's in person or whether it's in phone or Skype sessions. It's equally as effective. And it's amazing what comes forward and what, deep healing we're able to do in a very short period of time. It's not the slow track of psychotherapy. It's the fast track of healing and effective healing, not just applying a surface Band-Aid. You can't expect to do the spiritual bypass and be healed.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of your people on your site talking about they were there for 2 days and their life was totally shifted, and everything you worked with them, it was so deep they didn't even they didn't even believe it when they started it, and now they're just true believers. So
yeah, really great.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's very rewarding work, I have to say.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know that. It's wonderful to hear that available for people. So, and you talk about intimacy, where it starts with heart-centered communication, and that's where you went in your life. And in our world, with people working so long, many hours out of the house, how do they take the time to do this kind of heart-centered communication, and what exactly is that?
Yeah, so learning heart and soul-centered communication skills is really an essential part of holistic stress reduction, right? Because when we are holding on to internalized mental and emotional stress, it's creating an internal upset and triggering that protection mode chemically in the body, that freeze, fight, or flight response, right? And the secretion of stress hormones. So in an acute stress situation, such as I always describe my personal experience of an acute stress and the response of the limbic, response in the body, that freeze, fight, or flight response. So every day I would go for a mountain bike ride, and I would find a place up on top of the mountain, sit down, and do meditation. So one day I am sitting up, doing my meditation, cross-legged on the ground, and then when I finish, I raise my hands up over my head to stretch, and as soon as I moved my hands, I heard this right next to me. It was a rattlesnake.
Oh, whoa.
Right? I didn't see it.
Wow.
Didn't know where it was. All I heard was its rattle. And in no time, I didn't even have to think how to respond. My body had already leapt up and was, several feet away from the noise. So that is an example of how that freeze, fight, or flight response that is built into our nervous system, kicks in an acute danger situation, right? Yeah. And then when that danger goes away, the body chemistry returns back to homeostasis and balance. So, but while it's kicking in, you have the stress hormones that are flooding the body. So you've got the adrenaline going and the cortisols and all of that, which is essential to save your life, in a dangerous situation. In a chronic stress situation, when there's this steady drip of the cortisols that are just chipping away at the immune system, it's like this, like a low-grade fever or something that just chips away, and eventually weakens the immune system so much illness and disease can set into it, right? So when that acute stress situation, comes in, like with the rattlesnake example, the systems of the body that are not essential for self-preservation in that moment, such as the digestive system, such as, critical thinking and strategizing, all that becomes secondary, right? And where the blood is pumping to is no longer the forebrain, but the hindbrain, so that the blood can quickly and immediately, get to the muscles, get to your heart, so that you can flee a situation. So that's why when, you can feel like in that rattlesnake situation, I didn't have to think about what to do.
Right.
Didn't have time to think about it. My body just automatically reacted.
Yes. Yes.
So in a stressful, chronic situation, your chemistry, your body chemistry is staying on high alert all the time.
Yeah.
Because of mental and emotional upset that you're holding on to in your body, right? And what that's doing is it is suppressing your immune function, it's suppressing your digestive system, right? So stress-related illnesses and disorders, heart disease, gastrointestinal disorders, acid reflux, all of that stuff is related to stress, internalized stress.
Yeah.
And the communication skills part comes in because when we hold on to mental and emotional upset in our relationships, you're causing that same protection mode, that same freeze, fight, or flight, high alert mode in your body chemistry.
Yes. Yeah, you can call it supervigilance. When you're so supervigilant watching what's going on around you to keep yourself protected, I understand that well. Grew up in that. So I totally understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you can feel it in your body. You can feel it in your body. And what's so interesting about healing is that the adverse is also true. If you're feeling in your body love and peace and inspiration, that also has a chemical reaction in the body. And other chemicals get released called endorphins, right? The serotonins, the endorphins, the feel-good, hormones in your body that feel good. And what does that do? It doesn't suppress immune function. It actually supports immune function, because when your body is feeling safe and happy and peaceful and in balance and in inspiration, it's also producing more T cells. And your T cells are your natural killer cells that keep your immune system strong, that keep your cancer cells in check, in balance, that meet, all the, things, the viruses and everything that's come, attacking our body all the time, every day.
Yep.
Right? Yes. So we all have cancer cells in our body, and it's our beautifully functioning immune system that keeps everything in check. Keeps it in balance.
Interesting. Reading, I guess I heard that years ago, that we all have cancer cells, and it's like, really? But what you're saying is the truth. I understand that now, because we have to keep it in balance. Otherwise, then when it goes out of balance, that's when the dis-ease shows up. And
right. Yeah. So our body always has, mutated cells that are dying, cells that are, every cell in our body regenerates, and you have to look more into, if you look at, Dr. John Bergman. I love his stuff. He's a chiropractor that works in Orange County, and he has a huge library of videos, educational videos. He tapes all of his classes that he teaches to his students, and he teaches and educates everyone about the human body and all of its functions and how it works and how each system of the body is beautifully designed and orchestrated to work with each other system, right? We all work together. We're not isolated systems of the body that need to be treated in isolation of the other systems of the body. Yes. Everything works in harmony together. And, you know, when I work with my clients that are facing, you know, great imbalances, whether it's cancer or autoimmune disorders or gastrointestinal disorders, I refer them to his YouTube channel and to look up what their disorder is so that they can educate themselves about the physiology of their own body and understand that. It's very empowering.
Sure.
Rather than going to, you know, a specialty doctor that wants to prescribe another pill, another medication to address a symptom,
right?
You know, that also has side effects that are extremely harmful to your central nervous system and a lot of other stuff. You can educate yourself on how to support the systems of the body naturally and holistically and support your immune function, your immune system.
Oh, yeah.
Keep your body healthy.
I mean, there's so much autoimmune disease now. This is rampant. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And what you're teaching is so important for people to learn and to understand, like to be able to understand what functions are is really, it's really a big thing. Yeah. So I know your work is very comprehensive, and the whole health, you know, that's so important because, you know, the old days way of working, it doesn't work anymore. We've moved beyond that. We've moved beyond that thinking, really. Those of us who are ready for it, we're all moving towards, you know, and are open to it. We're moving towards the whole body health. And
I came to this realization, this understanding, you know, when I was in my master's course, and for my master's project, if you will, I wrote a book called Porchia's Wish, and it really was the manual that I used, the holistic manual I used to for the work that I do now. And I realized that you can't just work with the mind alone. You can't just work with nutrition alone. You can't just work, you know, and isolate these areas and affect the positive change that you want. You have to look at all of it together. You know, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yes.
All of that. And so that's how I work.
I know. It's an amazing system. It really is. So I want to ask you a little about the 9 traps of unconscious loving. What are those, and how do we avoid them?
So the 9 traps of unconscious loving is another tool that I came up to help individuals and couples identify the traps that they unknowingly fall into in relationships that undermine their loving intention. And what those 9 traps are really 9 ways that we miscommunicate with ourselves and with others. And we don't have time to go over all 9 of them, but I'll give you an example of the first one.
Sure.
And the first one is expecting the other person to be a mind reader.
Oh, absolutely. Perfect.
Right? So just because we fall in love and we're compatible and we have great sex and all this stuff doesn't mean that that person automatically knows what we need. You know, and if we don't tell them and explain to them what we need and what we expect, and they, you know, don't do what we want them to, we get hurt. And it leaves a little mark in the heart and another little mark in the mind. And that hurt and disappointment, you know, resides there. And of course, then when we get angry because that person, you know, didn't understand what we wanted them to do, but how could they? They're not a mind reader.
Oh, you know, this is so important to hear, because I had an incident this summer, and I have a friend whose husband has very severe brain cancer. And we're really, you know, praying. So she had a really bad report through his doctor. And so we were out. It was a girls' weekend. We all went out and we were trying to support her. And we went to a store and she decided to leave quickly and didn't tell us that she, she left so quick that nobody knew what to do. She was just gone. So we called the friends that were left behind and said, will you make sure she's all right? And so later, one of the friends said to me, well, you have to know she needed, you should have gone back with her. And I'm like, well, she didn't ask us to. In fact, she didn't even tell us that she was leaving. She basically just, she might have told one of us and just left. And so this friend said, well, you should have known, she should, you should have known. And I said to her, no, she needed to tell me that she needed us to be there. And she totally,
absolutely.
That, you're her friend. You're supposed to know. You're just supposed to know. And I said, no, I don't think that's how it works.
No, it's not how it works. It's not how it works.
You validate.
Yeah. And in our romantic relationships, the closest ones when we, choose a partner to live our life with, and we expect that person to be a mind reader and to do what we want them to do, and then they fall short, and that little spot, goes in the heart and goes into the mind, and those hurts and disappointments accumulate.
Yes. And
those little black marks accumulate in the heart and the mind, and pretty soon the heart and the mind is filled with all these little hurts and disappointments, and you eventually want to call it quits. Right. It's like it turns into despair and hopelessness, and then you call it quits. And so then what do? You go, and you find another relationship, and you start off real happy and hopeful and all that stuff. And what happens is that all those little hurts and marks that you had in the last relationship come with you. They travel with you in a little suitcase. And unless you've learned to be a better communicator yourself, it's really taking responsibility to communicate and to share from the heart. The same pattern is going to repeat. So eventually that second partner, there was that happy little couple that had happy faces together and holding hands, pretty soon they start to get a frown on their face. Their smile turns into a downward, smile or a downward frown. And their eyes are looking worried. And pretty soon the same thing happens, and then they want to call it quits. Yep. So these patterns repeat over and over again until you stop that, until you break the pattern. And learning heart and soul-centered communication skills is essential to break those unconscious patterns. Yes. And boy, that's a huge step for people. So many people are unaware of that. They really don't want the responsibility of it, for one, and then they don't even look at it. They're always looking out rather than looking in. Yeah. And you said the key word there, responsibility, because that's another trap. I forget which trap it is, but some people will think it's their responsibility to take care of everybody else, and not themselves. Yep. Mm-hmm. Right. Anyway, responsibility is a really big part. One must take responsibility for being a clear, complete, honest, and heart-centered communicator, and I teach these skills. Great. That's great. They don't teach these skills in school, and I don't know why. Learning to be a heart-centered communicator is an essential life tool that affects every area of your life. Yes. Whether it's the communication with your family, your children, your relationship, your coworkers, friends, everything. Yes. Everything. And instead, we get stuck in the power struggles in communication, or we get stuck in, reacting too is big. We just react. Yeah. Emotionally reaction, or reaction rather than responses. Yeah, it's true. It's living
That is living unconsciously, isn't it, in so many ways? I
It
mean, that's
is.
what it is. That's what unconscious living is. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
And you just put that in perspective. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good because
So that's why
it's a lot to learn.
what's that?
It's a huge
It's
lesson.
a lot to learn.
Learning, life learning lesson that we just will never learn, and some of us get lucky and we just all of a sudden our mind opens up and we're like listening. Oh, I never could see that before. Then all of a sudden it sort of like opens up and you hear it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this work is really, like tagline says, it's whole integrated self-health, a path to healing, to loving, and to living consciously.
Yeah. And
not unconsciously. Yeah.
That's where we're going. This is what, to try to make our world the most beautiful place, or to have this is going to help you get there, to live consciously and to understand that if you don't know what to do or how to, you can go to Dianne and you can go to people like Dianne that teach this and help people solve this in their life and give you a direction and give you understanding of how it's affecting you in your life. And then, and then you see the changes like your clients have seen. It's a huge thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a path of personal and spiritual growth.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, my spiritual world opened up and my whole life changed, and it's just led me in this direction, which I'm very grateful for, even though it wasn't an easy path, and it's never easy, but it's always worth the journey, isn't it? It's always worth it. So, you teach peaceful conflict resolution, successful. How does that work?
So that's another tool that I have in communication skills, and it's 7 steps for peaceful conflict resolution, and it's a tool that allows people to explore all of their emotions, starting from the more surface emotion, which is usually anger. Right? We get something happens, we get triggered, and we get angry. That's the emotional reaction, right? And underneath the anger, if you look a little deeper, there's usually a fear, some sort of fear that's underneath that. If you look underneath the fear, there's probably hurt, sadness, disappointment. If that hurt and sadness and disappointment continue for long periods of time, it can turn into hopelessness and despair, right? These are all lower vibration emotions. They have an energy to them. The lowest vibration emotions are that of shame and guilt. Yes. Right? Definitely. So when we're living and holding on to those extremely low vibrations of shame and guilt, it is causing horrible mental emotional stress inside our body and the weakening of our immune system. Right? Yep. So the 7 steps allow one to systematically go through those, and identify those lower level emotions, get clarity on them, moving up in the scale to the more neutral ones, which is understanding. And then you come to, willingness and trust, forgiveness, compassion, the highest vibration emotions, love, inspiration, right? It really connects us, gratitude. Oh, yes. So the 7 steps is a real practical tool that allows people to express all of those and become a clear, complete, honest communicator with themselves first, and then be able to share that with, another person, whoever it is that they're wanting to communicate with and resolve a conflict with, or just get clarity. So I use those 7 steps with my clients all the time. Whether it's about a relationship or whether it's about getting clarity of, their health issues or career. Sure. Really, really
Well, it's
practical
really,
and really helpful.
yeah, in so many ways, it's teaching them self-love, isn't it? I mean, they're learning to love
Yeah,
themselves, and
absolutely.
that to me is that's what I brought this whole program about, to help people be aware. There's so many ways you can learn self-love, and it's not a
Yeah,
self thing; it's a self-preserving thing. It's like you can't give what you don't have. You've got to learn
yeah.
to, fill your own cup up first before, like on the airplane. The whole airplane is always the best when you have to put your mask on first before you can
Mm-hmm.
help the person next to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got to take care of yourself. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm doing a wellness retreat called
Yes.
Life in Balance
Yep. Okay.
Holistic Wellness Retreat this year in Aspen, Colorado, September 14th to 20th. And this particular retreat is going to be focusing a lot on these communication skills. So people, it's limited to 20 women, and
Okay.
they'll be learning about the 9 traps of unconscious loving, and they'll also be learning the 7 steps for peaceful conflict resolution. So great stuff.
Yes.
And the retreat is going to be, it's just wonderful. It's combining outdoor activities such as cycling and hiking and a silent vipassana, horseback ride, and wisdom circle, with these school or tools in communication skills and education and mind-body medicine and wellness. So it's incredible, and it's a very active retreat. So there you have to have a certain level of physical abilities. So the hikes are not going to be too strenuous, and neither is the cycling, but they are active. So every day we're doing something to also help move that stuck energy, right? So if there is low vibration energy that's being held in the body, the reason that we're doing these activities in this retreat is to help move that, while learning these essential life skills.
And that's so powerful. Yeah, that's really,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and of course being in nature. So Aspen, they're just in the beginning of the fall, September 14th to 20th, when the leaves are just starting to change color. It is spectacular.
It is.
So beautiful. Yeah, and I haven't mentioned yet, but my work is so nature-based. So when I work with people, I don't see people in an office. I live and work out of my home in Topanga Canyon, which is a rural community in the Santa Monica Malibu Mountains. And we sit outside and let nature inform the work. Many times there's different things that show up in nature that help a process that we're doing. So the other day I was working with a woman outdoors and a hawk flew overhead. And it was just the right timing. And I said, well, what does hawk represent? And what we're talking about right now with your, what she's trying to work out in her marriage. And, hawk represents being able to soar up high, seeing the big picture, right, the overview of everything, and also being able to zero in on the target from way up high, from that bird's eye perspective, down to the target and really focus. So that was one of the messengers, the animal totems that show up when we do some of the work here in Topanga, which is great.
I love that. Yeah, that's the kind of work I like to do, which is, I love the whole combination of the sensorial and the intellectual, all of it. We're doing it all. You're doing the whole body approach, which is what you're, that's great. So I hope people listening take advantage of this. I know you have an amazing offer for people through your gift. People watching, I'd love you to share that, Dianne.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on the show again, Janet. And so my gift is a free 1-hour phone session for one of your viewers, and if they, I don't know, write in or something, and you tell me who that person is that responds to this program, to this interview, and that person will receive a free 1-hour phone session with me.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's so great.
Yeah, and then there's also, I would like to give something else away too. If any of your listeners would like to register for the Life in Balance Holistic Women's Wellness Retreat in Aspen, I will give them $200 off of the price of that if they mention your name and register, before April 1st.
That's wonderful. Wow, I hope you're all listening. So I want to thank you so much, Dianne, for being on this show. And I want the listeners to please call in. Like you said, you've got this amazing opportunity to work with Dianne, to have a call, to attend the retreat. So please call in. Tell us, the one who, indicates it's the one. I'll know. It'll happen. We'll know which one. And write in. Love to hear how you love the show, like the show. Feedback. We really love getting feedback. And Dianne, you share such beautiful light, and your sensitivity, your compassion that just radiates from you, and helping people transform their lives. And it's so inspiring because you're helping people unlock their passions, ignite their authenticity, and finally create the life they love. And that's what
Absolutely.
This is about. So thank you so much. And I am Janet Miller, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Janet.
Oh, you were great. I so